Money is energy. A lot of people say that, they kind of throw that phrase around, but it's hard to know what that actually means. This is something that I heard for years, and I was like, okay, yeah, I get it. Money is energy. But how do I get that energy? How do I open up the doors to allow that energy into my life? And I've managed through digging things apart and studying things on such a deep level to figure out what the energy of money actually is, what the energy of wealth actually is, and how to actually align your energy, your frequency, and your state with that of money and of wealth. So today we're going to be breaking down what money really is. We're going to be defining what wealth actually is. And I'm going to be walking you through the one mistake that I know you're making that's keeping you from your infinite supply in your life. You know this is serious today because I'm wearing a blazer. So we're going to be talking business. We're going to be talking money. This is actually something that I shared a lot this week with my business clients, and it caused a lot of aha moments. I was going to gatekeep this for something that I'm building. But you know what? I thought if I had known this years ago, what I'm going to be sharing with you today, my financial situation would have improved dramatically so much sooner. And guys, I'm talking as somebody who came from living paycheck to paycheck, always running out of money, to now having an infinite supply into my life without having to hustle, without having to burn myself out, without having to change myself or chase money constantly. So let's get into point one. What is money? Money is not just pieces of paper and these little coins and pieces of metal. Okay? Money is not just the number that you see in your bank balance. Money is an energy, and it is simply an energy that stores value. That is what money is. And you really have to stop looking at money as like an item or an object. It's an energy that stores value. Imprint that into your brain. I'm going to write it down for you. Paper is meaningless. Coins are meaningless. Even the figures in your bank account are meaningless. It's the meaning that we give these things that gives it value. So until somebody decided, okay, if we go back to olden times, there was no money in existence. We used to just barter and exchange. So basically money was brought in, so we had a medium for that exchange rather than just saying, okay, well, if I give you these fish, can you, I don't know, give me a wooden table, right? So that's a really good example. But we used to barter things. There used to be no money swapping hands. It used to just be services or goods exchanged. And so all that money is a middleman for that exchange of value, one form of value for another form of value. And it's basically a tool that's used to represent the exchange of the value. The only reason money has value is because us human beings, we decided collectively, whether there was divine intervention there or not, who knows, that we were going to give value to this thing, specifically these notes, these coins, and then later on digital banking. So it was us that decided that these things had value. But the things really are meaningless until we give them the definition of value. So at the heart of money is value. It's simply a store of value. Get that into your head. So money is just a store of value, and money is infinite. Why? Why is it infinite? Should be answering this question. You should know by now if you watched my video, because energy is infinite. If money is simply an energy that represents a store of value, and energy cannot be created or destroyed, only converted from one form into another, then that means money is infinite, like everything else in this infinite universe. We are programmed in school, in society, to think on some level that money is a finite resource, but it is not. Like every other energy in this universe, it's infinite. And so your perspective should immediately be shifting here in, okay, there's an infinite amount of this energy circulating in the universe in different forms. So your goal, if you want to increase the flow of this energy to you, is how can I convert my energy from one form into the form of money coming towards me, into the form of value? Okay, which leads me to the next question. What is wealth? What is wealth? You might be thinking wealth is like loads of money. No, it's the ability to generate value. Then that value is reflected back to you in many forms, one of which being money, because money is a store of value. But there are other things that represent value that can come into your life, such as opportunities, such as experiences, such as connections, such as kind words and energy coming from other people towards you, community. All of these things also represent value. So wealth is essentially your ability to generate value. The more value you can generate, the more wealthy you are in terms of everything that will come into your experience, including the money that will come into your experience. I want you to just write that down before we move on. This is the second thing that you need to remember. So money is just a store of value, and wealth is just the ability to generate value. Think about billionaires. How many billionaires go bankrupt only to be able to generate money all over again? Why are they able to do that? And the common man who's going throughout his 9-to-5 life can't break above a couple of $1,000s per month, because the billionaire knows how to generate value. And so he's able to pour that energy of value into the marketplace, and then he's able to receive money off the back end of that. Even if he had it all taken away from him, even if we look at the world, if everybody was given the same amount of money, at the end of the day, the people who have the ability to generate value are going to be the ones that end up on the forefront and end up the most wealthy, versus the people who do not know how to generate value. So this brings me to question number 3. I'm so excited making this video, guys, because money was like my last thing to crack in this reality. And when I tell you I was broke for a long time, I've struggled with money patterns for so long. And it's only in the last year that I've broken out of it. And this is the stuff that cracked it. So the next question is, what is value? Okay. If you're like me, which you probably are if you're here, you need to know like the layers of things and what things actually mean and what things actually represent, so that then you can gain the awareness to shift your energy to master this stuff. Okay. Until you have knowledge about what's going on and what everything actually represents in this universe, you're going to be unconscious, just trying things and hoping things work. And that doesn't actually work. So what is value? Question number 3. You guys better love this blazer because it's warm in here. It's too hot to be wearing this. Value, 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 value. What is value? Think about it. Use your brain for a minute. Think about what's value. Okay, let me give you an analogy. You know, a teacher who really helped me get my head around this, and I'm going to quote him here and now because I need to give credit where it's due, is Myron Golden. If any of you know Myron Golden, I've mentioned him in a video before. The way he breaks down money and different concepts to do with business, and he shares like wisdom from the Bible, is so insightful. So if you like this type of stuff, check him out as well. But what is value? The flow of money, which is a store of value throughout the world right now. There's people all over the world who have that value in their pockets, in their bank accounts. People have money, people have different amounts of money, different levels of money all over the world. Some of that money could belong to you. It could be actually rightfully yours in the future. It's going to be yours at some point. The moment it will become yours is when the person who holds that money, that store of value, values what you're offering them more than the money. So if you want to be receiving a massive amount of value, you need to be offering something to people that they value more than the money that they have in their pocket or in their bank account. So what do people value? What do you value? What have you paid for in your life? Think about it. You value safety, you value security, you value probably health, you value comfort. And so you part with your money, which is your store of value, in order to receive the value of these things. This is actually part of tapping into an abundance mindset. Sometimes I have people come to me and they have a lot of fear around spending money. And the quickest way to get out of that, that's a very lack mindset. The quickest way to get out of that is to realize this energy of money is not being destroyed. It's simply being transferred from one form to another, i.e., you're giving the value of money to the supermarket, you're getting the value of food and nourishment into your body. That's an abundance mindset. So value is something that fulfills a need, fulfills a desire, fulfills somebody's vision, facilitates a transformation, or fills some kind of void that they want to have filled. So if we look at even the way Myron Golden breaks this down, he says value is created from past perceived voids. So things that people like wanted for their whole life. Let's say, for example, you grew up in a really limited financial environment in poverty, and you might have seen somebody driving a really nice Mercedes. And for some reason, you were 5 years old, clicked in your head, I'm going to have a Mercedes. You are going to love Mercedes over every other car out there. You're going to have blinders on because that was a past void that you had. It really emotionally resonated with you. So you're going to perceive that as really valuable. So everybody's like perception of what's valuable depends on their past, depends on their programming, depends on their perception. And the second thing is present perceived virtues. So these are basically just things that somebody would perceive as good right now or necessary right now. Like, yes, I actually really wanted this thing right now. Timing is really key with this. And then the third thing is future perceived visions. So an example of a past perceived void is that dream car. An example of a present perceived virtue is food, like something that you think is good right now. You might think a hot cup of soup is good right now because you're not feeling very well. That's something you would exchange your money for in this moment because you would perceive that as very valuable. Whereas when you're feeling healthy and good and it's a hot summer's day, you wouldn't think that thing is valuable because you're not in the state to want a soup. So whatever you're resonating with in the moment, you perceive as valuable. Then future perceived visions. So if there's something that you want, if there's a transformation specifically, and this is where a lot of the online space, where there's a lot of value created in the online space, if there's a transformation that you desire specifically, and you see that transformation as endlessly valuable, you will part with your money to get that transformation because you can see the payoff in your energy, in your health, in your emotions, in your state, in your finances, whatever. So your future perceived vision also creates value. So value is created through perception, okay? Okay, now we're going to get into the fun point, which you're probably asking next, which is, how can I generate the most value that I can possibly generate? Great question. If you're asking that, you are in the perfect headspace. And this point is where people make a big mistake, in my opinion. And this is where we're going to get a little bit esoteric and a little bit spiritual with things, but just bear with me. How can I create value? Specifically, how can I create like the maximum amount of value possible so that I can receive the wealth back in correspondence with the value that I'm generating? Think about for 1 second the value that you've already created, okay? So let's say you've been in a 9-to-5 job. You've been generating a certain amount of value for your boss. And so you've received money in return for the value that you've created, for the role that you've done. Now, the problem that we have when we think about like a 9-to-5, your typical kind of job where maybe you don't need that much qualifications or there's a lot of people who can fulfill that role, is if everybody can do it and if it's easy to generate that type of value, it's perceived as less valuable. Oh, I need to draw a graph. Okay. Okay, I drew this just to give you an overview of how you can create the most value possible, okay, in this reality. And I want you to start looking at value in terms of different levels. So if we think about the value that somebody who's unemployed is generating, it's typically not much. They're not generating a lot of value into the marketplace. They're not solving people's problems. They're not fulfilling people's past perceived voids or their present perceived virtues or their future perceived visions. They're not ticking any of those boxes. They're not generating that value. And so the value they receive off the back end in terms of money from maybe benefits or whatever is quite low, okay? Then we look at somebody who is working perhaps a minimum wage 9-to-5 job where you don't need a high level of skill. The problem that you're solving is one that could be relatively easily solved. And so the value that you're generating is not perceived as very high. And so the income that's generated off the back of that is also not very high. And so on and so forth. So you go up to skilled labor because the void, the virtue or the vision that you're fulfilling with this is perceived as higher value. The income that you generate off the back of that is going to be higher. And so on and so forth. So there's levels to the amount of value that you can generate, depending on the transformation that you're providing for the person who's paying you on the other end, okay? So whether this be a client, whether this be social media, whether this be the algorithm, whether this be your boss, it's all dependent on the value that you're generating and how that value is perceived by the other person. Let's take an extreme example of this. A celebrity could get paid 30 grand for just showing up to an event for 25 minutes. Why? Because their presence is perceived as valuable. But Sally could be working a job for a year and she could get paid 30,000 for just doing a year's work for somebody. So it's the same amount of money, but the perceived value that the person receiving the money is providing is totally different, which is why Sally needs to put in a lot more hours to receive that value back. So this brings me to my next point, which is my favorite. I've been ramping up to this. It's not about busting your balls and working hard in your 9 to 5. Okay, Sally could be the hardest worker in the room. She could be clocking in extra shifts and extra hours. But working hard does not equal value. Okay? You've got to find the zone in this life where you specifically can naturally generate value for somebody, and in a form that is really, really valuable and not as common as other forms of value. Okay, so let me break this down. So let's say Sally is down here. Poor Sally, she's going to be our example today. Sally is down here, and Sally has been trying to just work harder and work harder. And yeah, she got a little bit of a promotion a year ago, but no matter how much harder she works, she never breaks above a certain threshold in the value that she can receive back to her. Why? Because the field that she's in is capped at the level of value that she can actually generate. So for Sally to actually start stepping into the field where she can generate the most value, she needs to do something that most people never do. And that is to stop acting like a circus monkey for money. What do I mean by that? Most of us are programmed to put money on a pedestal. So we put money up here and we're down here. And we think, okay, what do I need to do to get money? And we chase money and we chase money. And we change ourselves based on feedback that we get from society and the environment on who we should become and what we should do in order to get some money. Now, money, you know, is a store. It's simply a store of value. And what you do when you place money on a pedestal is you put yourself below it and you devalue yourself. Let me give you an example of this. So when I finished up in school and I had to pick a degree, I picked law because I thought that will make me money. And in choosing that degree, I abandoned myself, I abandoned my interests, I abandoned my passions, and I didn't really consider what would actually be enjoyable or aligned for me to do in this world. All I considered was, is it going to make me money? Is it going to make me money? Is it going to make me money? So I fundamentally abandoned my creative side, my intuitive side, and the things that were like really aligned with me. And I changed myself to become another version of myself so that I could potentially attract some money into my life. That is what I call acting like a circus monkey for money. And the reason this is so dangerous is because money being a material thing is part of physical reality, and physical reality is the lowest form of consciousness. So you're taking something that's an end effect and you're saying, okay, I'm going to change and I'm going to be this and I'm going to be that, and then maybe I'll get a little bit of this. Maybe I'll get a little bit of that. And so it puts you into an energy where you devalue your authentic self. You devalue your truth and who you are and your creative life force energy that's in your body by changing yourself and trying to program yourself to fit a mold that attracts money. What that does is it signals I'm not really that valuable authentically for who I am to the universe because I have to change just to get this thing that's a lower form of consciousness. And what does that do? That makes money run from you because you're putting it on a pedestal. You're saying this is more important than me and who I truly am. So you're basically putting it up here, you're chasing it, and what you chase is always going to run from you. This was the final frontier to me breaking into my abundant self and my abundant reality. And let me tell you, it feels amazing to hack this. So I really want to walk you guys through this. So let's go back to Sally. Sally, she's in her 9 to 5 mindset, which we all resonate with Sally. I know I've been there. I worked more crazy 9 to 5 jobs than you can even imagine, guys. So trust me when I say I get this. Sally is thinking, okay, she's starting to realize, so long as I stay here, I'm going to be capped at the level of value that I can generate. And so my income is going to be capped. And so Sally starts to wonder, okay, how else can I generate value? How else can I generate value? Maybe Sally starts looking into marketing, or maybe Sally starts looking into drop shipping. And she starts trying all these business models that people say are going to bring her this magic thing, money, the store of value. But still, this is why I'm saying, even when you're an entrepreneur, you can still be acting as a circus monkey to money. Because still, okay, let's say she changes herself. She gets, a David Goggins motivation video on, which we love David Goggins, but she really tries to force herself to hustle and lock in and grind. And she's still going against her intuition and her creativity and what would actually feel good to her, like truthfully and honestly, what she would love to create in this world. And so she's forcing herself to set up an e-commerce store. Let's say Sally absolutely loves to bake. Okay, she's an incredible baker. She has all these like healthy recipes that people are like, wow, how is this cookie only made of like chickpeas and it tastes like heaven on earth? So this is like her thing, right? She loves it. But she's thinking, okay, I need to make money. I need to make money. I need to get this thing. So she chases it. And in chasing it, she changes herself. She denies what she truly loves. She kind of stops baking and she gets locked in and she starts forcing out things in her business to do. She does start making more money. She starts generating value in the marketplace. She starts fulfilling a need that people need. But she's starting to get the feeling that she's getting burnt out, and her energy, because we're all energetic beings, her life force starts to drop because she's pouring her creative consciousness into something that doesn't resonate with her, just to get money back from the universe, from the infinite field. And so she's getting money in, but she doesn't feel wealthy and she doesn't feel abundant and she feels drained. So now she has more money, yes, but her creative energy is very diminished. And once again, she finds herself capped. I am out of space, but she finds herself capped at a certain level of value that she can generate in her e-commerce business because she doesn't have the creative life force, the energy running through her body to generate the value and channel into this thing anymore because it doesn't really resonate with her and her truth and her alignment. And I can tell you guys, and I want to save you from this trap. I'm speaking from experience here as well. I can't tell you guys how many clients come to me and they say, I got all the income goals that I wanted. I got my 5-figure months, my 6-figure months, but I felt dead inside. I felt burnt out. I felt drained. And because of that, I wasted the money away. I didn't care about it. And now I'm back where I started and I'm lost and I don't know what to do. So when the question came up here, how can I create value? I want to take this a step further for you guys, and I want to help you step into the energy where you're creating the most value that you can possibly create. And that's not going to come through misalignment. That's not going to come through changing yourself to chase money and to do something that other people are telling you to do just to get money. No, because money is an energy that stores value. It responds to value. It flows to value. Money flows to value. And so the first step for you to become your most abundant, most wealthy self is to start radically valuing yourself, your authenticity, and your special zone of genius. This is also, I think, a Myron Golden quote. It's a book that he recommended. Haven't read the book, but I love the title. So this is kind of messy. We'll get rid of this here. So Sally's gone from here. Now she's up here perhaps, and she's making, she's replaced her income. Maybe she's even making 5-figure months, but she's still capped, and energetically she feels limited and she feels burnt out and capped. She's trapped here. And Sally wants to know, how can I just be my most abundant self? And how can I have it be easy? This is another thing clients ask me. I know how to do it through hustle, but when you gain wealth and abundance through hustle, you get the money, but the value is taken from your life in some other form. Okay, so you may have to sacrifice on your health. You have to sacrifice on your energy. The sacrifice is always taken from somewhere else. So she wants to know, okay, I've done it this way. I know I can generate value, but how can I generate the most value that I can possibly generate while staying in the best energy that I can possibly be in? Not running out of my energy, because my energy should be an infinite supply. So Sally wants to come up here. Sally wants to be in her most infinite supply, where it's not forced and it's not hustle. Because this is still in limitation. This is still capped. Like when she gets burnt out and she can't work anymore, the flow stops. So step one to tapping into your highest level of wealth and your highest ability to generate the most value that you can generate is to begin to radically value yourself. The self is the reality. You have an energy field around your body that is communicating constantly with other people's energy fields, with the energy fields on the internet, with the energy fields of potential clients, and with the universe as a whole. And when you're abandoning yourself constantly to chase a material thing, like I said, you devalue yourself. But when you pass up on money and opportunities because it would cause you to abandon yourself and your truth, you communicate to the universe, I value myself more than anything else. I'm so valuable that I can't be swayed by some deal if it doesn't align with me and my authenticity. I'm so valuable that I won't take this money if it doesn't align with me and my truth and my alignment. That starts when you start showing up like this and you start radically valuing yourself, even if it's at the expense of physical things in reality, that creates an energy around you of extremely high value. And what you've done in that moment is you've put yourself and your energy on a pedestal above money. And guess what happens then? Money starts chasing you. You see how it's switched. You value yourself as the creative consciousness that you are, as the cause in this reality that you are. You stop chasing something that's an end result and an effect. You put your energy, your truth, your alignment on a pedestal. Money gets off the pedestal. Money sees, okay, this person is very valuable. They value themselves. They have an energy of value around them. Let's go over there. So this is how people start having opportunities and things falling out of the sky. Now, I'm going to give you a personal example of this. I had the ultimate test of this. This is going to tie in with intuition and everything, which I'll break down in a second, but I'll start with the example. I had the ultimate test of this when I started doing coaching. I had couple of times when I didn't necessarily listen to my intuition. I didn't necessarily listen to my truth and what my body was telling me and my vision. And I made some decisions to take on some people who maybe weren't necessarily aligned. And every time I did that, it really didn't happen too much, but this is just in early days. Every time I did that, it ended up being a massive drain on my creative life force money. And it actually ended up costing me money because it zapped my creative energy. It zapped my clarity. I had a really great, experience where someone taught me a lot. So I'm very grateful for everybody who's come through. And I had this realization. I said to myself, okay, I'm making a deal with myself that if I feel somebody is like, even if I don't know why, I just have a little feeling that it may not be a right fit, then I owe it to them and I owe it to myself to say no to the one-to-one coaching with that person. So I learned this along the way. I had a consultation with somebody, great person, but my body was just telling me no. And the person was saying everything right. They didn't say anything wrong. They were on paper a perfect fit, but my body was telling me no. And I ended up actually kind of signing up that person because they were so eager to get started. They just signed up there and then I took the payment and I sat down and my whole body felt constricted and I felt like this isn't aligned and I don't even know why. I don't even have a reason. But I made a promise that I would value my intuition. I made a promise that I would value myself and how I feel about it more than anything. So I'm going to refund this person with no logical reason why, with no explanation to give this person. I said, I'm so sorry. It just doesn't feel aligned for me right now at this moment. So I'm going to give you your money back. And at this time, guys, this was months and months ago. At this time, I didn't have a wait list for coaching like I do now. I had the occasional consultation. I did not have money flowing in. So when I say this was my final test to the doors of abundance unlocking into my life, and when I tell you, like my financial situation has drastically increased since this moment, I'm not joking. So this was a decision I had to make when money wasn't flowing in. And I could have really done with that money from that client. But I valued my energy and my truth more than that money from that client in that moment. And I said, okay, I'm going to send it back. I had no other consultations in my calendar. I had nothing coming up. And I said, you know what? My energy is the most important thing, because my energy is my life force. That's what I'm pouring into my business. That's what I'm pouring into my creations. And so I'm going to value that. I'm just going to value that. I'm going to put it on the pedestal. Sent the money back. Within a few weeks, my videos started popping off. My coaching applications went through the roof. And I got the most aligned clients ever from the applications. Like, everybody who's applied for coaching, you guys are amazing. You always get a payoff when you radically value yourself and your energy, because everything is energy. And when you value your energy and you act like you value your energy over everything, then you can generate the most value that you can possibly generate. And then you can receive the most value that you can possibly receive back from the universe, from the marketplace. So what does Sally do? Sally says, you know what? I'm going to start making baking YouTube videos. I'm going to start making content on Instagram with tutorials on how to make healthy things. And all Sally's friends are saying, that doesn't make sense. You know, you're earning amazing money with this other thing. Be logical, Sally. Come on now. Don't throw it all out the door. But Sally's soul is saying to her, come on, do it. This represents freedom. This represents alignment. This represents fun. So Sally goes and she starts doing it. Now, a key point as well is when you start moving from radically valuing yourself and your truth, you start to get locked in with your intuition. Your self-trust starts to go through the roof when you do this, okay? When you stop abandoning what you really want and what you really desire, a relationship of trust begins to form between the inner intuitive self, that higher self, that soul part of you, and the action-taking physical self. And when you start getting that balance of self-trust between those two sides of the self, you become very, very unstoppable, basically, in this reality. So Sally says, fuck you guys, I'm going to set up my baking Instagram. I don't care what anybody says. And so Sally's self-trust goes through the roof. And then all this value that Sally feels about herself and her own innate talents, essentially, she can channel that into the marketplace through what she creates. So through prioritizing her interests, you know, her intuition, her authenticity, and what she maybe thinks is missing, you know, why she even wants to bring this out and express it, she's able to channel that life force into creations, services, products at a level that other people can't do, because that's not their truth. So this is how you enter a zone of one. This is how you become the only person in your lane. This is where there's no competition. Every single person on this planet is very different. We all have different experiences. We all have different kind of propensities for different things. We all have different preferences. We all have different beliefs. We're all kind of quirky and weird in our own way. And there is a sea of people waiting for you to express your truth and create something that maybe you needed in the past, or maybe you would like in the future, or that you value today, that they resonate with. And they're waiting for someone just like you to create that thing. And you're going to be able to create it better than anybody else. You're going to be able to be the number one in your field versus when you were working in, like Sally, e-commerce, because you have infinite life force to feed into this thing, because it's aligned with you. So you no longer get energetically drained. And from there, you can get into flow state. And without going too deep into this, you're able to access the God within you, the higher creative consciousness, because you're not acting out of ego and out of what's logical. You're acting out of your vision, your imagination, your play, and your joy, which is that divine feminine energy, which also can tap you into flow state, because you're connected to your body, you're connected to your subconscious mind, and you're connected to that creative higher aspect of you. And here's the key point, you guys. When you are basically creating from your alignment, from your higher self, or that God within you, you are able to access God's supply into your life. So that's the more esoteric side of this. When you align with your infinite nature and your infinite self and you stop denying it, you can create infinite value, and then you can receive infinite value. This is not a finite universe. And the only thing that is finite and limited is the ego-driven, logical self who chases things like status and money. And so the input of limitation, of acting a certain way and building a certain life over something that's coming from the limited side of you, which is the ego, is going to give you something back, an output of limitation in your finances, in your abundance, and in your wealth. Tapping into your divine, heart-led, intuitive, creative aspect is tapping into the unlimited aspect of you. But most importantly, the root of this is you value yourself so much, first of all, that you don't live a lie just to chase something. Therefore, you put yourself on a pedestal, you create from that energy, and that energy of whatever you create with that has a very high perceived value, because people can pick up on how valuable this thing is because of the energy that you're pouring into it. Because you're not creating it to get something, you're creating it because it's who you are and you value who you are. That's infectious. And then other people are going to perceive the value of that. You can smell it on people. You can literally smell it when someone's performing, when someone's forcing, when someone's doing something just to get something. People can pick up on that energy. We're very perceptive of each other's energies. It's in our fields. It's like an invisible field around you. But when someone really values themselves and they value what they do, people pick up on that as well. There's a story, I think it's in The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. Or maybe it was in Power, I'm not sure, but Robert Greene talks about this. This man, I can't even remember who it was, so sorry, I'm butchering this example, but this man who was just a normal man, he used to arrive to these different kind of lands on the ship, and he would stand like a king. He would fully get into the mindset of, I'm so valuable, I am a king, and he would fully step into that energy. And people treated him like a king because that was his energy. He came across as incredibly valuable. And you see this in everything in life, okay? But it starts first with you valuing yourself. So up here, Sally has got it. She's abundant, she's free, she's got time freedom, she's got, great health, she's got great energy, and she's just got supply flowing into her life without needing to go through a lot of effort in misaligning herself, because when you're in alignment, you get to flow. And money loves to flow as well. So that's the good news. Money is a flowing energy. It's a feminine energy. And so it's very attractive to money when you get into this state. This is why people say authenticity is the highest frequency or the most magnetic state you can be in. Because authenticity signals, I value myself. I like myself. Even if I'm flawed, even if I'm weird, even if I've made mistakes, this is who I am and I'm not hiding. That shows that you value yourself. That's why it's so magnetic. That's why other people then value you as a result. And that's why money will also come to you, because money is just a store of value. Okay, last point, because it's not all about you. It's not all about you when you're generating value. And this is going to tie in with the mistake that I'm talking about. Hold on, let me rub this out. So this ties in with the last point. This is the mistake that people make. Even if you're aligning with your authenticity and what you want to create, you can still fall into this trap of focusing on the money over focusing on the value that you're providing. This is called the law of reciprocity. Raymond Hollowell talks about this in Working with the Law. This is based on the Bible as well. But when you generate value and you give value, you open up a cycle of exchange for value to come back into you. However, you hear that a lot. However, and I learned this the hard way, your intention when giving and generating value is vitally important, because that infects the energy in the value that you're giving. So this is not just a physical universe. This is an energetic universe. Energy is the base of everything. And this is a trap that I fell into. Even when I was, operating in my purpose and my alignment, my ego was still hijacking my purpose and making me think about, okay, but what would be a smart way for me to make a video that might get the most views? And what would be a smart way for me to create maybe a product that would bring in money for me? And that is the wrong way to activate the law of reciprocity. That will not activate the law of reciprocity, because it's the wrong energy. According to the law, you have to give value in an energy that is selfless, in servitude of others. So we tend to be a little bit self-centered, especially if we're still operating in ego states. And this was a big hack for me, a big cycle I had to break, where even in the content I was consuming, I was reading books thinking, I have to find something here that I can say in a video so that I'm perceived as smart so that I'll get views. No, girl, you're still at the center of that. Your ego is still at the center of that. You have to give value that people need. And the person that you're generating the value for should be at the forefront of your mind and should be your driving factor in the value that you're generating. So the best videos, the best content, the best ideas, the best resources that I've made have come from me speaking to you guys, speaking to clients, and establishing what do you actually need, and really tapping into that and saying, okay, how can I solve this for them? Okay, that's how I generate the highest level of value. And then the money part looks after itself. So you're not thinking of gain, and you're not thinking of yourself and your own kind of selfish motives. You're selfless and you're in servitude of others when you're generating value. You focus on the value that you're providing, and then the value that you receive off the back end of that will take care of itself, because that is the law. I remember when I had this realization, I was cooking, listening to that audiobook, Working with the Law, and he said, you should be giving value with no thought in your mind of what am I going to get from this. That's when the floodgates of abundance will open up to you. You see this all the time. Like, you can know when someone's chasing the money because they're not really solving the issues or meeting the needs that create the value of the person who's going to give them the money. And so they miss the mark completely. Okay, guys, that's all for this video. I'm sweating. I need to take this blazer off. I hope this cleared up some of the noise and the BS around money and abundance and wealth that's floating around on the internet. And I hope this kind of got your wheels turning as to how you can start valuing yourself, how you can start generating that value in line with your value for yourself into the marketplace so that you can receive your infinite supply back to you. And remember, it's not about the money, okay? It's about the value that you can generate. And if you can generate that value in alignment, you are never going to have to worry about supply of money or wealth coming into your life ever again. Also, sorry, I have to add this in. You have everything you need inside you. You don't need to keep changing yourself. You don't need to keep performing. You don't need to keep trying to be all these things you're not. That's actually what's cutting you off from your supply, because you keep devaluing yourself. And so that energy is radiating outwards consistently. You have everything you need to enter your specific zone of genius. You just have to start really embracing yourself fully and showing up in that energy. That's all for today, guys. I hope this video helped. I will see you all next week.